When I woke up this morning, I did not think that Donis Advijay was a name that I would be discussing, but more on that in a wee bit. It's Hearts Standard. I'm Craig Cairns, that's Joe Sked. We're at Oriam, and we've just been here for the Hearts press conference ahead of Saturday's trip to Dens Park. There were a few kind of headlines that came out of it, Joel, the first of which is we're in the thick of it, a few days now before transfer deadline day. He was asked about, Neil Critchley I should say, was asked about any possible incomings or outgoings.
Yes, and he was, he's always very careful what he says, because he always says he doesn't want to lie, but then he doesn't want to give away too much. He doesn't want to overpromise, and if he comes out and says, we're going to sign 1, 2, 3 players, and then Hearts sign no one, or Hearts sign only one, then folk are raging. So he basically just confirmed that, as everyone kind of knows, that Hearts are still looking to add, but whether they will add is a completely different question, with the caveat that he is happy with the business that's been done so far. He feels like the team have been strengthened with the addition of Cabangu, McCart, Steinwender and Xander Kartum. So I think if the window closed right now, I think the management team, I think everyone would be quite content. But as we're kind of just discussing off air, people want more and more. So again, it's always reiterated. I just think if you can do good business in January, then do it, but don't force it. I think, especially with the situation Hearts are in, not just in terms of on the field, but looking ahead to the summer and how the squad is going to change and evolve, and the potential that could the potential there of things happening and money being available. I think you want to wait. I think try and do as much business in the summer rather than do it here, but again, if they can find the right person and someone they have identified who will make the team better, then go for it. But we've seen in the past where kind of scrambling around to get loan boys from down south or just get kind of anyone in the door. Thankfully, I don't think that's going to be the case.
It seems to be that they've acted early. They've got in what they were, for want of a better term, what they were desperate for. Their priorities they've got in, and now it's kind of like a bonus if they could add more. Things that I picked up from today, just two things to add to what you've said. One, heavily hinted that it was a defender that they were sort of prioritising to bring in, because he said, if you read between the lines, the injuries we've had and things like that. But it also sounds like you said, if the transfer window closes now, they'd be happy. And that's not that they're happy with the squad as it is and that's it for forever. It's just that they don't, like you said, they don't want to be rushed into getting a sticking plaster between now and the end of the season. If they sign somebody, they want it to be somebody who will either hit the ground running and then be a good player for next season, established for next season, or bed in over the next few months and be established for next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it, and it's a good time to do it, because again, it's different to what we've had to kind of endure or enjoy in different ways over the last few months, where there's not actually that many games between now and the end of the season. There's only 2 midweek games, and then you can maybe add a Scottish Cup game here or there, hopefully, depending on how next Monday goes. But yeah, it's personally, selfishly, happily for the business to be on as soon as possible, so I put my feet up on Monday and not have to wait around till 11 o'clock at night for things to happen. But yeah, so that's one side, and then the other side was interesting that he said that Hearts, they can do stuff without having to move players on as well. So that's another thing, because you I still look at the size of the squad, and you'd always be wary bringing players in just because of how big it is, but it seems like that's not the case. But
for a short period though, because there's quite a lot of contracts. I know.
It's
still waste and it's still excessive, but at least bringing in players now, it's just a few months until it sort of eases again.
It's more like a management issue, like just having to leave guys out.
So you hear them talking about once you get more than 20, is it more than 22 players or something like that? Then more than like 2, say, 11-a-side teams, basically, then it can become quite difficult to manage just on a day-to-day training basis. I've heard some managers say that.
Yeah, because that's why I think a lot of managers say ideally they would like 23, 24, because that mitigates for injuries.
Grace, aye.
And then you've got the rest of it.
Or another keeper or something.
Yeah, and then the rest of it's young boys. But he did confirm that there's been interest. You can read all this on the site, but he did confirm that there's been inquiries into players, some more concrete than others. Again, no names mentioned. So I do feel that if there's going to the busy aspect of it is probably going to be potential players leaving.
Was there anything else before we kind of move on to talking about the team news ahead of Dundee? Was there anything else transfer-wise that you picked up from that?
Don't think so.
Okay, so kind of related, the two newest faces in the door are Zander Kartum and Michael Steinwender, if we're saying both of the names correctly. We were being corrected at the start saying that it's Steinwender and not Steinwender. So I was asking if it's Michael instead of Michael. So there's a decision to be made. Critchley was saying he will, over the next 24 hours, make a decision on these guys and whether they're ready. And Callum Neuenhoff, we should stick in there as well, whether they're going to be ready enough to be in the squad, be on the bench, or even start. I think when we're talking about a start, there's only one player we're really talking about there, aren't we? But is Michael, because I think the other two, you don't have to rush the other two in.
Yeah.
There's no need to rush the other two in. There's a question about potentially, do you rush Michael Steinwender in, who's pretty much in a pre-season at the moment, or do you go with Lewis Nielsen's again, who's a bit more match fit and got most of the game last week?
Yeah, I think that's going to be. I was thinking that with my predicted 11 earlier on, which will potentially be out on the site by when this is up, or later on this afternoon / evening. That there's probably one big. I mean, you can have a question over Shankland at the top end of the pitch, but like the big question is around Steinwender, and Critchley mentioned that that's going to be a decision he's going to have to make this afternoon. Him and his coaching staff, and again he talked about that how. Just because positionally, that's different with Halkett being out and Oyugoki being injured. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Steinwender said he's fit. He said he's like ready. I think he's probably raring to go. But he also talked about the fact that he needs to. They don't want to push it. And you've seen it with Neuenhoff. They've not wanted to push him. They wanted to make sure he's back in at the right time. Again, it's helped by having loads of centre midfielders. Centre backs are a really important position, and so I am probably 55-45 in favour. That's how I'm feeling just from listening, just gut instinct, which is usually terrible. So I'm going to go 55-45 that Steinwender will start.
Steinwender spoke to the media. That's kind of what Joel's referencing there. That'll all be embargoed until 10:30 tonight. But we know that doesn't really mean anything, does it? It doesn't mean that he's going to start tomorrow. It doesn't. Yeah. Hearts have done it before, where they put up a player and then they're nowhere to be seen at the weekend. Yeah. Hearts aren't the only team that does that, by the way. But I'm similar to you. I'm not going to put like a percentage on it, but I find it a really difficult one to call, because I think they probably internally they obviously think that Steinwender's a better player than Lewis Nielsen. I don't think they would have brought in Steinwender to play ahead of Lewis Nielsen if they didn't think that. So now they have the decision to make about who are they going to get the best performance out of over this 90 minutes. Is it going to be the fully fit but not played much Lewis Nielsen, or is it going to be the guy who's still getting up to speed and still getting to know his teammates but maybe has a bit more quality? It is a really difficult decision, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a difficult decision. It's probably would have been made easier if it was a home game against Dundee, maybe, or if the league was a wee bit different. But
or it wasn't a ground that gave Hearts PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more a big decision on the fact that the league table and just how big a game is to kind of keep up that momentum and with the team in touching distance to the top six, because kind of just looking at the game itself in isolation, and that you go into it with the Critchley League table was shown last weekend. It's been all over social media amongst Hearts fans just how well Hearts have done under Critchley. That it's been good, but it can be better. Again, Critchley talked about that, but it can swing so easily. Hearts win, and the momentum continues to build. The feel-good factor continues to build, and you're probably kind of putting everything behind you, putting like relegation and all those thoughts into the rear view mirror. Go to Dens Park and lose, and then you're kind of almost back to square one, and where there's a wee bit of there's negativity and pessimism. That's just how finely balanced it is, and that's why I'm probably now swaying more towards 60-40 that Steinwender will play or start.
I'm not wanting you to give away the entire predicted 11, but is there anything else that you feel's in there for the game? Or I mean, it's been fairly settled recently, hasn't it? I mean, there's a couple of positions, like the right wing and up front, but other than that, it's been fairly settled.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Grant start again on the right. I'd imagine it would be Benny and Devlin in midfield. There could be a curveball if Ewenhoff starts alongside Devlin. That's interesting, but no, I think that it's going to be relatively settled. Again, Shankland or Wilson is a big one. I've not really thought too much about how Dundee play to weigh up whether it is better for Shankland to play or for Wilson to play with Cabangu.
Of Shankland, because he always scores against Dundee.
Yeah, he does well against. It does well against. And then you've got the right back question, whereas Forrester obviously struggled against Fraser Murray.
But now we're starting to talk about a lot of players. I mean, you could potentially have a lineup there that's got 4 or 5 players in it that haven't played much football recently.
Again, you have to bring in that balance, because looking at it, I don't think we're going to see Steinwender, Ewenhoff,
Taylor,
Shanklin and Taylor all starting, even just those three, the first three. So it's I would imagine a couple of changes from last weekend, and I'm talking about when Nielsen came on. So when Halkett came off, I would imagine a couple changes, but largely, as always, you're looking at about 6-7 players pick themselves.
Anything else to add? I mean, Dundee, as I said, I've joked about it being a ground that gives Hearts fans PTSD, but even from earlier in the season, that was a really horrible afternoon. There's some of the conversation around Taylor. I mean, some people want Taylor back in the team, but then the question is, well, do you put him back into the scene of of that horrendous own goal? But I mean, and Dundee have a fairly poor league position. They were in a really poor run for quite a while to see out 2024 there, but they've had some really impressive results against the top 3 in the league recently. Yeah,
I hadn't realised just how, I'm not going to say how good, because I hadn't realised they had lost so few recently, and which included a draw against Celtic. They are a dynamic team, a young, they've always been quite young under Tony Dock. Typically, they've got about 6 boys back from injury. And
all defenders
as well. So you look at it, and you mentioned the scene of Taylor's horrific, and I described it as the scene of the crime from the start of the season, where you could point to a couple of things, probably a few things, but on the pitch, that was kind of the beginning of the worst start to the season ever, because you looked at week before, Rangers, the draw, did enough to win. And that kind of just put the Fleetwood defeat and that game kind of to the back of the minds, gave everyone a bit of hope, a bit of confidence. And then you're getting booed off at half time at Dens, because you're going 1-0 in, it's 1-0 down into stoppage time, get in, readdress, and then you lose 2 goals in stoppage time, which remarkably is not the first time that would have, not the last time that happened this season. So it's I'm looking forward to it, and I just think it's I just look at this game as, I wouldn't say a decisive factor just because how mental the league is, but I'll go a big way to kind of letting us know if this team is going to be battling for the top 4 positions for the rest of the season, or battling to get into the top 6 and maybe 5th place and sneaking into Europe. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it's going to be like that for the next few months. Hearts are in that precarious position where, you've seen what happens over the last 6 matches. It took so many wins, or so many games without a defeat, to actually lift Hearts out of 11th place, and they're still in that precarious position where you know that a couple of poor results could be around the corner, and then it's it does then feel like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But I don't know. I mean, would a draw be a terrible result up in? I mean, given the way the form's gone so far, would a draw be a terrible result? I mean, ideally you want to win, not just because winning's better than drawing, but because Dundee are like a direct rival right now.
It's not ideal, but it's a hell of this is maybe a weird way to put it. A draw is there's more distance in terms of being better between a draw and a defeat than there is between a win and a draw. If you get my drift. So I think it's not losing.
Keeping the run going.
Yeah, keeping the run going. That's really important. And fingers crossed that happens again. Team, they have found a bit of confidence. They've been able to grind out results, and then there is it's just kind of just putting it all together.
Fingers crossed indeed. On to Dens Park. We're going to get out of here. Please check out everything from this press conference and more at heartstandard.co.uk. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you all soon.